Hey, Love Warriors, we're back. Come, I hope you're joining us. And our guest Stephanos will be joining us shortly, so come on in. So excited for today's talk. Thank you. Hello, Planting Seeds of Healing. Great hashtag name. I love it. Handle name, excuse me, not hashtag. Hello, Museum for Black Girls. Hello, Gina. Thanks for joining. Hello, Suhani. Thanks for coming back. We're just waiting for Stephanos to join us. Let's see. All right, here we go. Awesome.
Hello.
There you are.
Yes, trying to figure this out.
You're good? Sound checks,
Seems like-
everything's working?
Sounds like it.
Great. Let me just adjust my volume here. Perfect. Hello, Raven. Thanks for joining. So if you feel free, Stephanos, at any time, if you see some people you want to give a shout out to, I'll be looking for any questions that come up. And if you see some that you want to interject on there, you're welcome to,
Sure.
just answer the question. So before we get started, everyone, my love warriors and everyone from Stephanos' tribe, welcome to the Love and Corona Instagram live interview series. I have chosen the best, the most masterful coaches, teachers, healers to join us this week and beyond to talk about love, to talk about relationships, to talk about healing and self-worth and the inner work while we're really processing, we're trying to process and move through this unprecedented times. And so I'm so pleased and honored to have Stephanos Sipandos with us, who is a masterful teacher. I mean, I don't use that word lightly. I think you are such a brilliant teacher, coach, and you're going to be so blessed by his wisdom today. He is a relational alchemist. He has a strong, powerful insight on understanding women and men and the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and focuses on helping men be their best and helping women to understand men and help them become their best. So welcome, Stephanos.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction, Angela. I appreciate it.
Oh, welcome. I could have gone on and on. I'm a huge fan. So before we dive into, this my barrage of questions I have for you. How are you doing? How are you and your wife adjusting to quarantine and these uncertain times?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, besides not going out in public too much because so many things are closed, I mean, we still go to the grocery store to get groceries. We have some online ordering, but we were doing that before, really, and we were going to grocery store. I mean, I work from home and have been for years, and so has Christine. So nothing externally per se has really changed. It's more knowing that there's so many more restrictions out there in our social sphere that is more has me just observing and witnessing what is happening in the world at the moment. And yeah, it's really interesting times, really interesting. I mean, the socioeconomics and geopolitical and sociocultural conversation is definitely another one, probably for another time.
Completely another one.
But yeah, I feel good. I have my structure, I have routine. I'm meditating a lot more. I'm in stillness and silence and practice, internal practice a great deal more. Not because I have more time, because I've just chosen to do that during this period, and so does Christine. So that feels pretty good. I mean, I could go on and on about what's happening in the world or what I think is happening in the world and allow that to affect my state. But the reality is nothing's changing in my immediate environment. I wake up, I have my routines, I move my body, I serve, I create. I've done that for so many years. I still do that. I have no reason to feel angst, so to speak. However, I also understand that there are massive changes happening in the world, and I'm aware of those changes, and I'm also observing those changes and doing my best to behave in accordance with what I feel is best for humanity. Mm-hmm. Doing my part, my contribution. And for my audience, and as a leader in the community. So I think we're all leaders in the community, to be honest with you. I think if we have an awareness of self and awareness of others, we automatically become leaders. That is as a gift bestowed upon us.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers or 10 million followers or 3 followers. That's irrelevant. So I'm observing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm with you there. You know, as an entrepreneur myself, my routine, my schedule hasn't been thrown off. And really, it's just allowed me to be that much more creative and spend more time with myself, which I do pretty much every day anyway. So I'm comfortable in the aloneness. I'm with you there. But for people who aren't, and this is new for them, being alone with themselves, being with their partners routinely, you know, I want to first talk about singles in relationships, and then we'll talk about, I want to ask some questions directed toward couples and partnered relationships. But for people who are single, or not even just people that are single, for this question, the space of fear, how have you helped your clients? It sounds like you maybe didn't have to move through that space of fear. I have to acknowledge that in order to feel the peace that I feel currently and the creativity that I feel, I had to move through my fear that I felt when this sort of all came to a head and we sort of went into survival mode. I faced my fear and I felt that fear. I'm curious to know how if you went through any fear in the beginning, and if not, or if so, how have you guided your clients and people that you talk to move through fear in this time?
Yeah. So for me personally, absolutely moving through fear, through uncertainty, a lot of anger. There's still anger that I feel. There's still frustration that I feel. There's still for example, I live in Texas. I'm in Austin, Texas, and it's fucking hot here. Like I've lived in Bali, Indonesia, a super humid place. I've been to a lot of Southeast Asia, so I'm used to humidity. Australia is a dry climate, but it's humid here at another level. I'm either super unfit, which I don't think that's the case, or it's really humid here, and I want to tell myself it's really humid here. So I went outside in my garage and I trained really hard for an hour, and it was tough, and it really took it out of me, and I immediately was sweating. I mean, I'm a big sweater anyway, not to overshare here, but it's just humid. And so I finished my workout, and I just had this energy still in me. And part of that is, I'm telling you this story, this was just this morning, because I'm still angry. I'm angry at how we're responding as a collective. I'm angry at the uncertainty that is a systemic uncertainty. It's here largely because systems previously in place haven't really supported this level of unknown.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I'm just letting you know, I'm feeling anger. And so even after that very, very intense 60-minute workout, I still had all this energy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is coming from frustration. But I move my frustration, not just through physical training and exercise, but through very specific practices of breath, sound, and movement, intentional, deliberate practices of understanding the core of where that's coming from. Is it coming from old wounding? Is it coming from old childhood stuff that's maybe amplifying the present moment, such as, am I coming from a place of when I experienced uncertainty as a child, when I experienced volatility as a child, is that presenting and rearing itself now in the present and amplifying what's actually happening in the now? So I get to look at all that stuff and I'm observing all that. When we're talking about fears, I'm an avid traveler. I'm an adventurer. Like I'm concerned, how does this change the traveling landscape? My family and friends are in Australia, like 15,000, 11,000 miles away. I think about these things. I don't get stuck in the fear too much because it's future projecting. So when I'm working with clients, I'm helping them understand, hey, don't future project too much. They're your thoughts sort of running wild a little, right? That's okay. Respect them, honor them, acknowledge them, and also ask what's happening right now. Because just as this whole thing in the US particularly took a turn very quickly, it can turn the other way very quickly as well. That's very possible. So we get to choose what we want to focus on, right? So I'm consistently encouraging my clients to, and the people that I work with, to choose what your focus wants to be. Allow yourself to be angry. Move the emotions through. I mean, my beloved and I, we run at least 2 sessions, free sessions, meditation and breathwork sessions and coaching sessions free every week to help people emote and move through the stuff that they're feeling. Now is a perfect time to start processing old stuff, to start working with counselors, psychologists.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
You've got the space. If you're blessed enough that, and a lot of people are suffering, this is part of my anger. Like, a part of my anger is that economically people are being displaced, which is affecting not only their livelihoods, but their lives. They don't have a place to sleep, to be. They don't know where they're eating next. I'm fortunate enough that I don't have that issue. I'm not facing that pain point, okay? However, there are many out there that are facing that are suffering deeply. And so if you're one of those people that either has more space or working from home or are still in your routine of working, and routine's another important thing, by the way, that's why I mentioned that earlier. But if you're in that place where you can contemplate and you can be creative and you have some level of stability in your life still, it's really, really important. It's really important that you take advantage of this time to do that inner work. It's like a hierarchy of needs, right? You can't look at your psycho-emotional, psychosocial needs if your basic physical needs aren't met. You know, clean water, food, shelter. Like, it's very difficult to contemplate those higher order things.
Yeah.
So if you're in a place where you can, I suggest you do. Join online groups, whatever it may be. Join a virtual circle of men or women or co-ed. Pick up a course and learn. Pick up a few new books and read them. Do things out of your norm. Create new routines in this time. Routines is everything. It's very, very important that we create structure and routines in our lives. And then even maybe in the evening, reflect on those experiences. Reflect on what we did that day. Reflect on what we created that day. Reflect on our accomplishments that day. Write them down. Look at them and say, could I do different tomorrow? Could I do better? Was I happy with myself today? That helps us maintain a level of sanity as we're in routine, right? And it helps us deal with uncertainty a little more efficiently. Yeah. The uncertainty can bring up a lot of fear. But if we don't process and move that fear, if we don't breathe through that fear, if we don't allow ourselves to witness that fear and own it, be responsible for it, assimilate it, we're going to suffer even more, because guess what we're doing? We're suppressing
it. Yes.
Look at the parallels. Yeah.
That's exactly the message that I really try to impart, that, you know, if we deny or refuse or abandon our fear, it doesn't disappear. It doesn't mean that it's not there anymore. It's just suppressed. And then it grows in this insidious tank that we're in currently. So I think we're all being called to look at our fear, whatever it is, and however it shows up, whether it's in the back or the neck. I felt all of that. And as you mentioned, you know, does it bring up past childhood experiences? You know, for me, the initial onset of when this first kind of, like you said, happened like this, it was fear of mortality, fear of my loved ones' mortality, fear of my loved ones who already have, you know, pre-existing medical conditions, mortality, being separated from my family, fear of that, you know. So I had allowing myself to feel it in my back and wherever it was showing up, and breathe through it and do the inner work, and really talking to my inner child and reminding her she's safe. As you said, not getting ahead in our thinking is what helped calm my inner child. And I just think that's such a powerful time to go inward and not ignore the fear, you know. Like, fear, people try to eschew fear thinking, well, if I acknowledge that I'm fearful, then I'm just going to be in that space and I'm spreading fear, not love. There's information and there's fear, and there's sitting and staying in fear, and there's moving through fear. And I just want to say one other thing that you mentioned. I listened to a meditation with Deepak Chopra, I think last week, and part of it was about how feelings and experiences are all transient. So as you said, it happened like this, it can also change like this. And so this too shall pass. And that's what I just keep trying to remind myself and my clients as well. So thank you for that. I hope people really took that home with regard to fear. Yesterday, we had a guest on the show named Rob Hill Sr., and he coaches men and women. He's an author, speaker, and we talked about the inner work that you and I are alluding to or speaking of, fear, you know, all the things that come up for us. And we talked about, you know, one of the things I know that you do is you focus your audience as a lot of men and women. And I really salute you for the work that you're committed to doing and serving men. And the call that I hear from a lot of women is the call to have more men doing this inner work. How do women help their partners or future partners or the men in their lives benignly or gently introduce work with you, with therapist, with coach, so that it's a we, not us versus them, but we're all in this together to heal the dynamics of relationships?
The answer's in your question, the last
Yeah.
part of the question. It's in the we. Because if we project and we force, and this doesn't have to be a gender dynamic thing, it can. I mean, there's so many aspects to masculinity as a construct, as an energetic, and there are so many constructs to being a man and constructs to being a woman. But this is also a human thing. If any individual forces something on someone else, it's generally not received well, and it's not assimilated in the mind body very well, because it feels forced. And whenever we experience force, we retract into more fear, and it brings up these protective or defensive mechanisms. And so forcing our ideals or ideas or what we think is right for someone generally doesn't work. It also allows the other person to think, if you're forcing me to do this or you're pushing this on me, does that mean you think I'm wrong? Or does that mean you think I'm not good enough or smart enough or able enough to be your partner? And so that may trigger up old wounding as well. Because remember, the inner child within us all, the child that's experienced difficult times, and most have, not all, but most have, that little boy or girl that's experienced really challenging times, they usually have suppressed those feelings during those very specific experiences because it's been too overwhelming as a child to deal with. So we've enabled a coping strategy to deal with that difficulty at the time. And generally what happens, that gets left unchecked, and we carry that on into our adult lives. And so situations in our present that resemble situations of the past that were traumatic or painful trigger that unsettling feeling of that inner child within us. And that little inner child then begins to panic, becomes fearful, and informs our present moment nervous system. And when our nervous system is tensile, that reminds the inner child of those times when that inner child was scared. The little child, not the inner child, but the actual child was scared. You were scared 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so the negative loop or the cycle goes and goes. And so when we force something onto someone, we can trigger their stuff. And so that's what not to do. So I'll apophatically describe what not to do.
Yes.
Don't force.
Don't force.
You can do, what you can do is let that person know, let your beloved know, specifically you ask woman for man. So as a woman, let your man know how important it is to you that he would join you on this journey, if he would be open enough to join you on this journey. And that's not coercion, that's not manipulation, you're just speaking your truth. It would be really important for you if he shared this experience, if you were able to share this experience together, and would he be willing to try it? Come from a place of compassion and love. You're not telling him that he's broken or he's wrong or he needs to fix himself or that he needs to do this or you're breaking up. I mean, hey, look, it may get to that. That could be a non-negotiable for you. If a non-negotiable for you is, I have to be with someone that loves yoga because I love yoga, then you've got a choice to make about whether you want to be with that person. Your non-negotiables are your non-negotiables. However, it's about you. Make it about you. Don't make it about them. Make it about a collective experience in life. And would he be willing to do that? Would he be willing to at least attempt that for a period of time? 3 months, 2 months? You know, that's how I would approach it. I know when people approach me with that level of openness, I'm curious. And if it really doesn't, and give them an out. Let them know that, hey, you really don't have to say yes to this. I don't want you to feel pressured. Let them look into it. Provide them with information. Men like to decipher things and understand it all. You know, I like to make all the connections. So present them with the information. If it's a meditation that you're bringing, like a Buddhist meditation, bring a pamphlet. Let them read about it a little bit. Let them know about it. Let them know. And even more importantly, if you're on this journey, and we'll just use Buddhist meditation as an example, let them see let them see the change in you from being in this meditation, from practicing this meditation every day or 3 times a week. You be that change. You be that transformation. That will intrigue them. Say, what's this that you're doing? I'm noticing you're more affectionate to me. You're less, you're less agitated. I mean, this is great. What's going on? Let them come to that. Let them arrive at that as well. Let them see the change in you.
That's beautiful. That's a nice, gentle, sort of direct but indirect way of, offering, tools and strategies without imposing them on someone.
It's also feminine energetic. So there's something really beautiful about a woman being in her feminine energetic, just like there's something really profound about a man being in his healthy masculine energetic. And so when that woman comes to that man in that feminine energetic, he can meet and hold in his healthy masculine energetic. If he's got capacity to do so, of course.
Yeah.
But that's another conversation.
Well, I'm going to go to that question
Okay.
a little bit. So speaking again to single women and potential future partners, they meet someone that, and we're going to speak from the female dynamic, meeting a male partner. They meet someone that has a lot of the characteristic personalities, values, core belief systems that they want, but maybe there is not the most healthy masculine dynamic in that person. I don't know if you can differentiate this or sort of categorize it or qualify it, but what would be sort of the major warning signs, red flags that, this man is in his toxic masculinity and maybe not stick around to do the work, or this is someone who, I think he's willing or working or moving toward that healthy masculine, and a woman might want to try to stick that pursuit of a relationship out with. Does that make sense?
I think so. So the way that you can tell if a man is in his unhealthy or shadow expression of masculinity is, so when we look at masculinity and femininity, so let me break down masculinity.
Yes, he's about to break it down, everybody.
In some ways. So masculinity is an energetic, just like femininity is an energetic. And it's 2 sides of the same coin. These energies exist within every human being. I'm not a massive fan of the term toxic masculinity, only because it denotes that there's a rhetoric or a narrative around it that only men are toxic or only masculinity is toxic, which by default can't be true, because if masculine and feminine energies are polar energetics, if one is toxic, by default the other must be toxic or has a capacity to be toxic as well, because it's in relationship to something. So if there's toxic, that toxic means that it has to be in relationship to healthy, or you can replace the word toxic, unhealthy, healthy, shadow, light. Okay, it's important to make that distinction. So we can use the term toxic masculinity if you like, but know that toxic femininity exists as well.
Absolutely. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So and it's again, these exist within femininity is an energetic, masculinity is an energetic. I'll go into them in a moment as well. But I just want to get into this first because it's really important to understand this. So as we're being in the world and doing in the world, being is a feminine energetic, doing is a masculine energetic. Inclusivity or inclusive action is a feminine energetic. Exclusive action is a masculine energetic. Go energy, driving energy, is a masculine energetic. Flow energy, being more passive per se, is a feminine energetic. Passiveness doesn't mean weakness, by the way, either. So understanding that is a foundation, right? So we have doing energy, go energy, exclusive energy. These are masculine terms, masculine energetics. Be energy, flow energy, inclusive energies are feminine energetic. So extremity or toxicity in expression is when it's unsustainable and extreme. Extreme being number 1. So oppression, control, coercion, autocracy, subjugation, judgment, harsh critique. These are unhealthy shadow expressions, extreme expressions of masculinity, of masculine leadership. Because now it's an extreme of exclusion. Yeah? So if a leader of a company a woman of a company, is a leader, and she needs to make a very fast decision for the sake of the company, the employees, the whole macroeconomics of it all. And she goes and makes that decision. She's in a masculine energy. She's in a masculine energetic of exclusive decision making. That's it. If a man who's leading the company, I'm purposely using these gender roles, right? If a man is leading the company, and he's thinking back, says, I've got to get my team involved in this. Gets his team of 10 people and they start having an open discussion, very inclusive discussion. That inclusive style of leadership is a feminine energetic. That's all. Now, if he kept doing that and no conclusion was reached, and he kept being inclusive but no decision was being made, there's an imbalance there. There's an extremity almost, an unhealthy expression, because there's no doing at all, which is a masculine energetic, and only this passiveness, and the decision making can't be made. And if it keeps carrying on and people are affected in a negative way, then it becomes an extreme version of masculine and femininity, right? You with me so far, yeah?
I'm sorry?
Cool. You're with me, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So next, when we're looking at relationships and we're looking at men being extreme in their masculinity, if they're controlling, if they're wanting, which comes from fear, by the way, so women can control too. Men are more coercive and overt. Women are more inverted and manipulative. Not women so much, the feminine and masculine can come out.
Either gender.
Either gender.
Either gender.
So for me, I've been manipulative in my life when I've been in unhealthy expressions, unhealthy states, because I've been scared to show my face, but I've wanted to change the situation. I've been scared to speak my truth, so I had to do that. I chose to do that in an underhanded way, in a manipulative way. And there's been times in my life where I've been very coercive and very oppressive and very loud in my control.
And what is that? Without being specific to you, but like when you say coercion, what does that look in oppression in a relationship? What does that look like in the masculine and feminine dynamic? I mean, we're not talking physical. Are we speaking emotional, physical abuse?
Emotional
right.
abuse, yeah.
But what's, is there something less extreme than the actual physical or emotional abuse? Are there, what might that look like?
Yeah. So there's obviously there's a spectrum of extremity, right? Starting from low to very high. Yeah.
So the reason why I ask is because I want people to see what those behaviors might be, even though they may not sound as extreme as, the other end of the spectrum. So just kind of giving us an idea of what the other polarity might look like as well.
Yeah. So a man in his unhealthy masculine, he may not be able to create structure in his day. He may not be able to make decisions. He may get very flustered and very angry very quickly, very agitated very quickly in terms of when a problem or a challenge is presented to him. So there are a couple of things that a man in an unhealthy expression of masculinity, how he presents himself in relationship. He may not have a clarity in his vision for himself or his purpose, and he's just sort of floating around. There's an unhealthy connection to his doing energy, to his active energy. So he's not active, he's very passive, and he's more in, I can't make a decision. So he's indecisive, he's unsure of himself, he's not confident. These are unhealthy expressions of masculinity. Or he's making decisions for other people without really considering them and not considering their place, their feelings. So that may look like, and I'm not talking about making a decision on where to go to dinner or anything like that, but major life decisions or really important decisions about, like, for example, a man and a woman just start dating, literally just start dating on the first date. Maybe they haven't even met yet. They met online. They're about to go on a first date and they're scheduled to meet at 6 p.m. And he says, he just rings up an hour and a half or 2 hours early at 4 p.m. He says, I'm right around the corner. I've decided to come 2 hours early.
Yeah.
Very inconsiderate. Extreme behavior. Very, very controlling of the situation.
That's a great example.
Yeah. Not healthy. So there's some examples of that unhealthy masculine energy, not being connected to the healthier versions of those. So not having the structure, not having the routine, not having confidence in self, not having a clarity on vision why they're here. And that's again, that masculine energy resides within all of us. If I were to say to you, tell me your vision for your life, that you're a woman, but doesn't mean you can't tell me you don't have a vision for you, for who you are and what your purpose is. I mean, I know what that is. Obviously, we've had many conversations. But that resides within all of us. So masculine and feminine energetics is not gender specific. Right. You're really, really clear about that because people get confused. And
well, I have an example for you or a question. I remember reading that motherhood is very much a masculine energy. Is that something that you're familiar with, where there's, you know, when you're parenting a child,
the protection element of it, yeah,
it's a lot of, well, it's a lot of doing, it's a lot of delegating, it's a lot of leadership, it's a lot of organizing, you know, when you're, and so I use the mom as the parent because we think of moms being in the feminine body because they're nurturers also, but that motherhood also has a very extreme masculine energy to it. I want to get back really quickly to the example you used. I thought that was a great one. So someone who says, hey, we're going to dinner at 6, but then they show up 2 hours early, inconsiderate. So how could a woman respond to that? Is she setting her boundaries and saying, you know, hey, we agreed to 6, let's show up at 6? Or is that like a red flag, like, this guy's going to be a problem? He's unhealthy.
No, I mean, you've got to put context to the example as well. I mean, there's a comment here, but my husband came to our first date 1 hour early because he didn't want to be late. Right. So, I mean, and that's very different.
Absolutely. I understand your example though. So, but if someone does do the example that you provide in that context, how can a woman respond to that? Does she, you know, exercise her boundaries and, you know, stick to, hey, we agreed to 6? Or is she impressed by, oh, he wanted to see me earlier? You know, how do we move in that situation? Because she might think, oh, he couldn't wait to see me.
Yeah.
And
that could be.
Yeah.
But generally it will push against our edges. So if something's uncomfortable for us, it pushes against our edges. Okay, and so the intention is very important. And human beings are far more intuitive than they give themselves credit for. You know whether that's coming from an unhealthy place or whether that's coming from a healthier place. You know.
Yeah.
You intrinsically know. And if that pushes against your edge, you have every right to say, hey, I'm not going to be ready, or hey, it's a little intense, you're pushing, you're going to be here, you're right around the corner when we agreed in 2 hours, I've got a heap of things to do, I've got kids to look after, or I've got to get ready, I've got some work I need to finish. Like, you can be really clear about that, and that could be a red flag for you as well. Yeah. And maybe the opportunity for you to speak your truth is exactly what you need for you to speak your truth, because that's pushing against one of your woundings. Maybe as a child, you didn't get to speak your truth enough because you didn't value you didn't believe in yourself enough. You didn't value who you were enough. Maybe you never had a voice as a child because it was oppressed by your parents, or there was so much violence in your family that you never got to speak your truth, or you were just scared. And maybe this pushing against your edge is an opportunity to do that. Or maybe you're the type of person, if he's come from, the example I gave is that he's come from is, I'm controlling the situation, I'm forcing myself on this woman, I'm going to show her who's boss. I'm going to show her that I'm going to be the boss of it, which is a very unhealthy relationship. That's not interdependence in any capacity. So that's the example I gave. If the intention is, hey, do you mind if I come over a couple of hours early? Or very different energetic, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So the example I gave was specifically unhealthy. If, let's just say, I just want to throw another example out there. If, let's just say, the come from was super healthy, and you can feel that it's healthy, it's just this guy's a bit nervous, maybe he wants to make a right impression and so forth. Maybe you, in your energetic, maybe your past experience has been very rigid and you get to loosen up a little bit. And it's okay. He doesn't have to be here at 6 on the dot. He can get here an hour early. But again, that's a different intention, different energetic, different reason for him wanting to be there earlier. Makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I listened to Marianne Williamson once talk about the masculine and feminine. And she talked about, you know, and you kind of gave an example of women being in their masculine energy when they're running companies, or even just at work, the doing, the leadership, the responsibility, and for a woman while she's in business or entrepreneurship. And then she goes home to her partner where she wants to be in her feminine energy. You know, say she has a 30-minute drive home, or, you know, an hour before she connects with her beloved. How can she shift that energy if she wants to embody more of her feminine energy and sort of leave a little bit of that masculine energy at the office and not bring it home?
Yeah, so if more foundations of masculine, feminine energetic. So masculine is a giving, active energy. It's giving energy, and it's an active energy. And you look at that in sexual interaction. Masculine is giving, feminine is receiving, and feminine is a more passive energy. And so, when we speak masculine and feminine energies, by the way, there is a connection to biology. We can't negate that. It's like saying that we don't physically exist. It's just not gender specific. It doesn't mean that it's 100% dictated by gender. However, there is a percentage, whatever that may be, an expression of masculine and feminine energetics that are tied to gender, are tied to biology. Our brains are different. Men's and women's brains are different a little bit. Our hormonal profiling is different. That influences our energetic expression, culture, history, evolution. There are so many factors, consciousness, the evolution of society, that influences these expressive states. So we have to be clear about that. So we're not completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as a saying we have in Australia. I don't know if you have it here, but the biology plays a role in masculine and feminine. So I get that question a lot. If someone's been very active during the day, making many decisions, being in a completion energy, because the masculine is goal orientated. The masculine, and part of that completion energy, that goal orientation, that objective, I've got to achieve this objective, the achievement energy, a lot of that does come from our evolution. It comes from what man's responsibility was in his environment, responsible for setting the perimeter, responsible for protection, responsible for discovering new lands and hunting and so forth. And so that was, if I don't hunt, if I don't get this food, my family will die, my community will die. So there had to be an energy of completion. Over time, that does impact men, masculine energy in a male body, right? And so if you're in that energy of doing all day and achieving and goal objectives and so forth, and you want to be in your feminine as a woman, when you get home, you have to move into a receiving energy. So part of that...
How?
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Of course. So part of that, so you want to be in a more relaxed state, because active energy is more tensile. So your nervous system is more active. You're thinking, you're in the analytical mind a lot.
Yeah.
When you're in that car or on the train or the bus, put on some soft music, watch something funny, detach, make a decision to not make decisions. Make a decision to not answer emails.
I like that. Make a decision to not make
to not make decisions. Yeah. To not answer business. Do no more business when you leave the office. You start to receive. Put on that nurturing music. Maybe have something nice to eat, like healthy, after you. So you're nurturing your body, right? You also have to have agreements with your partners. Your man needs to be on board with this. He needs to also understand that, because if you get home and he's asking you questions about business and what's happening on the weekend and when are we going to Spain and what about the kids tomorrow, and like all of a sudden he's put you back into decision making. Right. And then he sits and complains to his friends that he doesn't have sex, or his wife's not intimate with him, or that his wife's too much of a man, and stupid shit like that. Because he's not, and that doesn't mean he has to move into his feminine, actually, that he has to be passive. In fact, he needs to step into being more active in the evenings, per se, making decisions. It doesn't mean that they can't cook together if that's something that they want to do, because they share that experience. It doesn't mean that as a woman you can't do things, but there's no pressure, there's no timeline, there's no performance. And if maybe your day doesn't end working, maybe it ends an hour after you get home because you have other responsibilities.
Children.
Yeah, children. Yeah, you have a buffer. After you've done that, have a warm shower, have a bath, begin to unwind. Have your man do something really nice and kind for you. Don't talk about things that require massive levels of decision making. And if you do, pre-arrange that. So allow yourself to be in that receiving state, that passive state, that nurturing state, whether you do something nice and kind for yourself, and or you're allowing That's the toughest part
I
for
love
women that
that.
are in business like this, is allowing others to really do something for them. That's been my experience working with women. And so you have to allow, your man
Right
wants
here.
to, yeah, your
It's
man
it's
wants
my
to.
mantra. It's my mantra is to really be open to receiving, because I'm giving and I'm doing in the work all the time. And I know my balance, the scale is off. It's off.
Yeah, yeah. And so you've got to be open-hearted in that way. Really important.
So how do you, if it's a love language that you're speaking, or when you come home and you want to be in that space of allowing or receiving, do you communicate that to your partner? It would be nice if you ran my bath, or, because you don't expect them to just know automatically what you need in that energy and that time. So do you convey that to your partner, that when you come home, you don't want to talk about, decision-making conversations, that you like to be in a place of receiving and asking him to be in his masculine energy? Like, what does that conversation look like or play out, so that it's conveyed, everyone's well informed?
Yeah. So it's a proactive conversation, and it's a preventative conversation, not a curative one. So it's not, oh, we've had 3 years of these misaligned energetics and now we're being reactive.
Yeah.
It's talking about the things that are generally uncomfortable and that we generally don't speak about, such as how we want to be treated, what routines we want to have in our lives together, asking each other, what are your needs? We're very quick to talk about the bills, or our next holidays, or the next external stimulus, and the pleasure and the material thing that we're going to buy, and how's work going, and making money and all these things. And none of them are wrong. Yet we don't often talk about what our fundamental needs are, but we expect people to know. We expect our partners to know. And so expressing and conveying against your edge is really important. Asking questions of your partner, what do you need? What do you want? What's an ideal situation look like for you? And maybe you can't give that to them for whatever reason, but you can meet somewhere there where it's both felt. It's those types of conversations. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to talk about. Talk about you. Talk about them. Talk about what you want in the relationship. Where do you want it to go? What energetic do you want to bring into the relationship on a regular basis? How do you wish to feel? How do you want them to feel? And really understanding that and knowing that. But to know it, you have to explore it. You have to ask the questions. You have to be honest with each other. You have to be vulnerable. You may have to share something that, hey, I want to ask you, do you mind every Monday night that you run a bath for me? And you may be met with rejection. And that's why we don't ask the questions. And then we just build unconscious resentment that we have to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because we're not openly speaking our truth.
Yeah.
And asking.
I love that you brought up the conversation that, the masculine energy is decision-making driven, because it makes you think about, they say that, I don't know how many thousands of decisions we're making a day. And hearing you say this, I'm wondering, what else is there to talk about if you're not making decisions or talking about decisions? I'm really curious what those conversations look like if you're not planning the next trip, or talking about what we're going to have for dinner, or what we're going to do tomorrow or for the weekend. It seems like it leaves out a lot of conversation that we're not, maybe intrinsically not used to.
Yeah, well, you can't not have those conversations.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have those conversations. But that's the whole point. That's what I'm getting to. Space.
Yeah.
Silence. There's a lot that can be felt and experienced without words. Words are a very new construct in the human condition. Symbolism is the oldest of our languages. Just sitting there, looking at each other, maybe reading a book together. Reading 2 different books, or reading the same book and then sharing about it. It doesn't have to be talking about the same old. I'm sure, hey, logistics, we've got to talk about stuff. We've got to talk about bills. We've got to talk about life stuff, livelihood stuff, sure. But you allocate times to do that. You just put a structure and a container around it.
That's so good. I love that. I really love that. It's really helpful. And yeah, thank you for that. I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you going to say something else, Stephanie?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Someone had a question. I just wanted to go back to it. They asked, how do they leave a relationship with a man who's in toxic masculinity if they have children together?
It's a really tough question. With support is the answer. Yeah. So number one, you need support. Don't try and do it on your own. it's a loaded question because I don't understand or I don't know the history. So there could be so many. I mean, there could be threats of death. There could be, I don't know how she's defining toxic masculinity. If there's an opportunity to discuss very openly, if you're safe, physically safe, emotionally safe to discuss openly with your husband or with your partner that you don't want to be in the marriage anymore and things need to change, and you're willing to be in the marriage if these things change, then great. If not, because you're in a dangerous situation, you need support and you probably need to get authorities involved. So I don't know what end of the spectrum it's on, but so it's difficult to answer that. That's why I'm sort of answering in different ways. If it's a healthy, approachable situation, communicate, speak to it directly with your partner. Let them know that you're hurting. Don't make it about them, because they'll feel attacked and they'll get defensive and protective and they won't hear what you're saying. They won't feel what you're saying. Make it about you, how you're hurting, how you're in pain, how when he behaves this way, you're making it mean this. That doesn't mean that you're making yourself the victim or that you're blaming yourself for how he's behaving. Not at all. It's an opportunity for him to look at his actions in a way where he doesn't feel threatened. And he might say, oh, I am actually behaving not well. Mm-hmm. Because if he feels attacked and he feels that he's being threatened, he's definitely not going to even have a capacity to think about that.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope that they're still on the call here and that they were able to gain something from that. That was great. So I have one more question as it relates to single women, and my audience is largely women, single or coupled. But what would you say if you could name 3 characteristics or attributes or things? What do you think are 3 misunderstandings that women have about men? Any 3?
So 3 misunderstandings in the sense that that they think is quote unquote bad about the man.
Bad or good, or well, that we don't, we don't understand or see clearly through the man. What do you think women perceive about men that is largely inaccurate, or that we may, we're not open to hearing, or we're not aware of,
Okay.
What do we misunderstand about?
Yeah, I got it. Great question. Yeah. So the first is, and remember, when we're in relationship to anything, it takes 2 to tango, right? You can't have one without the other.
And I'm only asking because I'm serving the women that are largely in my tribe. So I know that same works the other way, is asking men.
No. Oh. Yeah. No, I hear that. No, I say that because what I'm about to say, it's the man's responsibility to actually look at himself as well.
Okay, got it.
So men exude this false sense of confidence often when they're very unconfident. And so women think that men are far more confident than they actually are, when inside they're crumbling. They're crumbling. They feel broken. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. Another misunderstanding is that again, with the people that I work with, that women have of men, is that it's been beaten into us as a culture that men can't emote, that men don't have a capacity to feel, and it's very, very untrue. Very untrue. And it's not a woman's fault that she experiences that. It's a cultural construct that we are being fed, right? And the truth of it is that men really feel. Men really hurt. And they usually transmute their feelings into anger because they're not taught. We're not taught how to emote across a spectrum because we're told it's wrong to do so at a collective level. Right. Another misunderstanding.
And your comment there just really piggybacks exactly on what our expert said yesterday, Rob Hill, about, just what's ingrained in the subconscious of men from, a patriarchal society of not being open and allowing men to emote since the time that they're children. So I also believe that emoting and the ability to express emotion is not gender specific either. I work with women who I think have difficulties and struggle with emoting as well. So
it's culture specific and brain specific.
Absolutely.
So our limbics, last I checked, every fucking man has a limbic system unless he has that's been lobotomized, right?
I saw your post. And that was great. Check
Yeah,
his Insta story. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, again, not that the limbic system is solely responsible for emotional regulation. It's part of. I just use the limbic system as an example because it's an emotional regulator of our brain. So we have that as men. That's why it's a misunderstanding. So it's a cultural thing and a cultural, environmental thing and a brain physiology, biological thing. That's why we can't remove biology completely from an energetic conversation. And the last thing about, well, there's many, but the last thing I'll say about the misunderstanding is that because you're a man, you have a purpose and you're clear. Many men don't. Many men don't, which is unfortunate and it's sad and it's really attractive to a woman when a man is very clear on who he is, but most men aren't. And most men aren't because, and I'm not blaming culture or society, but we live in such a fast-paced world. We live in such a world of expectations, short-term gratifications. We're not, again, men aren't helped to think through and feel through what they really want and desire. And they're thrown in the gauntlet of corporate America as an example, or just getting into a job and doing it, and that's your path and you just got to do that. And most men are unhappy and they don't have that clear connection to purpose. They don't have that clear connection. This is why I'm here on planet Earth. This is why I'm here to serve in this way. This is why I'm here. They don't have that. And that's we associate purpose, direction, clarity per se. It's a masculine energetic, but we associate it too much with men where we think that every man has to have a purpose. I think it's nice. I think the term purpose, is some fallacy around that as well. Another conversation, but it's really healthy for all of us to be connected to our sovereignty and why we're here. And it is particularly attractive to a woman when a man is really in his power. Yeah. But it's really attractive to a man when a woman is in her power and is in her expression, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I think that, it's not just that the life work that that you were saying, should a man know his life work? But I think women often find men attractive who are passionate about life, and whether they know their calling or what they're here on this planet for. That's a big, tall order. That's a big question to ask. But
that's why it's a fallacy.
Right, it's huge. Yeah. But at least there's passion in whatever it is that they're doing. Passion. Action. I'm sorry.
Inspired action.
Inspired action. It's inspired action, and it's inspiring to a woman. As a woman, I like to feel inspired by my man, whatever it is that he's doing, that he's passionate and has integrity with whatever it is that he's doing. And that's often enough. That mission, purpose, that statement, that's tall order. It's hard. And it took years for me to figure out my calling. So I don't expect every person on this planet to know or be connected to it. But I think the drive and the desire to live life passionately in whatever capacity in which you serve, I think is very attractive for a man and a woman, as you said, living in their fullest and best self. So someone asked a question. I just want to go back, and then we're going to wrap up. I wanted to ask one other question. It says, trust is an experience I am working to expand. I feel like I have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. What advice can you share to place both feet in while not overlooking red flags?
Trust yourself. It's a journey of trusting yourself. The reason why we often can't trust others is because we don't or can't trust ourselves. And it's probably some unresolved trauma or abuse that we've experienced that makes us feel other people are unsafe to be vulnerable or intimate with. And so learning to trust yourself and cultivating that inner feminine, inner masculine, being kind and compassionate to yourself, open to receiving the gifts that little girl inside you has to speak to, which is a feminine energetic, and your inner masculine, holding that container without judgment and allowing that little girl within you that safe space to connect, because maybe she didn't have that from her father figure or her mother, is going to be really helpful to help her trust other people.
That's great. The work starts here, starts with self, trusting yourself. Thank you for that. So lastly, I just want to, sorry, most of this was geared toward, I think it was for single and coupled women, but I just want to speak specifically to couples right now who are quarantined together, who may be seeing their partner for the first time or rediscovering their partner again after many years, after many children. What's some of your best suggestions or advice for people to be in this contained space, to getting reacquainted or noticing and seeing things about your partner that maybe you forgot, overlooked, or you disapprove of? how can couples move through this space more harmoniously or
Yeah.
in harmony in general?
First thing is, don't make the mistake of thinking that because you're seeing each other 24 hours a day, that you're actually spending intimate, meaningful time together. You're not. So you may be in the same workspace, you're at home, maybe one of you or two of you have lost your jobs, but you have to be very deliberate or meaningful with how you're spending your time. So my suggestion is that you still have date nights every week. You have at least one meal together during the day, and share something exciting that happened during that day. Exercise separately. So have space from each other as well. Be very deliberate around how you're spending time together. So just again, know that just because you're in each other's space doesn't mean you're actually with each other. Because if you're focused on different things and doing different things, it may mean you're not really connecting intimately. So create space to connect intimately. Experiment, explore with novel things. Maybe ask questions of each other that you haven't asked before, such as, how are you really feeling today under all this pressure and uncertainty and anxiety? Share something with me from your childhood that you haven't shared before. Tell me some of your deepest fears. Tell me one of your biggest dreams right now. Maybe plan a holiday 6 months from now together somewhere. Maybe somewhere local, doesn't have to be anywhere far away. I think local, as a side note, I think local travel is going to be boosted, not only in the US, but in other countries as well. Yeah. People are going to want to explore their own country a little more. And have sex. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy each other. Enjoy each other. That's right. Really enjoy each other. Yeah.
That's great. Oh, that was wonderful. That's a perfect way to end our conversation on that note. Anything that you wanted to add, that you wanted to share? I will ask you, what is Stefanos up to next? Is there something you want to share with us? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on stefanosstefandos.com or here on Instagram, stefanosstefandos. At the moment, really, we have myself and Christine, my beloved, have an amazing program for you. Be the Queen. That starts May the 5th. We have quite a few amazing ladies in there already. Super excited about that. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, and just business as usual per se, with some variations, of course, in terms of my service and coaching, and just creating some new things as well, new programs and access points for people to come in and learn and grow together as a global community. And we're doing a lot of free things at the moment as well, just helping people navigate these uncertain times. So really going deeper into that.
Thank you. I see all the offerings that you're providing right now, and it's beautiful. And I just saw that you are launching or relaunching a YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel. And if you're not following him, be sure to follow him on Instagram, because his posts are so intentional and thoughtful and filled with so much knowledge and wisdom and information. So I thank you for your service, and I thank you for all the energy you put behind the work that you do and teaching us all and helping us improve relationships. And I hope that through this time of uncertainty that, love is always the driving force, that, love is always what conquers fear. And I just hope that your work, my work, and all the people that are called, all of us are called to be a messenger of light and love. I just hope that we amplify that even more in this time. And I thank you for being of service.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.